Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We're going to be unpacking a seriously profound inner journey today. If you've ever felt this heavy, almost magnetic pull to just completely safeguard your own heart, or maybe you've noticed the universe kind of repeatedly tests your ability to let things go, well, you are in the exact right place. We're exploring this incredibly fascinating concept from Vedic astrology, specifically the placement of Saturn in the 8th house. Now, I know, astrology can sometimes feel a bit abstract, right? But what we're looking at today, it's a deeply human psychological blueprint. We're talking about how we process fear, how we essentially build our own internal armor, and most importantly, how we can eventually transform our heaviest emotional baggage into just absolute liberation.
So, let's lay out exactly what we're talking about here. Saturn in the 8th house brings a very distinct seriousness. It's this deep caution and a really palpable emotional weight, specifically when it comes to themes of loss, change, and, of course, vulnerability. Historically, this placement gets a bad rap. It's often misunderstood. People fear it, they view it as super heavy, or even punishing, mainly because it deals with life's shadows. The things we're forced to leave behind. But listen, we are completely reframing that today. We're not looking at this as some kind of cosmic punishment. No way. This is an incredibly empowering story of emotional alchemy. It's really a slow, highly deliberate lesson in releasing fear-based control.
But to really get this journey, we have to start with a fundamental question. A question that sits right at the core of the human experience. Why do we actually fear emotional loss? It sounds simple, but the answer literally dictates so much of our behavior. We're terrified of losing our people, losing our stability, and we fiercely protect our emotional security. For someone with Saturn in the 8th house, this fear isn't just a passing thought. It's an ongoing, deep-seated reality. It's like this constant hum in the background of their emotional life, always whispering that security is fragile, and man, it needs to be heavily guarded.
And that underlying fear, that leads us straight into our first phase, building the emotional fortress.
Now, what's really interesting about these specific tendencies is how they all connect as a massive coping mechanism. When stability feels threatened, our ultimate natural human reaction is to build walls. Inside this fortress, you're trying to control all the variables so nothing can sneak up and hurt you. This deeply ingrained survival instinct results in 5 interlocking behaviors. First, because of that ongoing fear of emotional loss, you instinctively lean into emotional self-protection. You build those massive inner walls so you're never left exposed. But hey, because those walls are so thick, your emotional expression gets delayed. Feelings are processed totally internally, right? And they're only expressed after a ton of reflection, usually way after the moment has actually passed. Then, because you rely so heavily on this highly controlled inner environment, you naturally struggle to trust change. Sudden transitions feel like massive threats because they literally shake the fortress. And finally, to maintain this tight control, you often just default to emotional isolation. Sometimes it honestly just feels safer to be alone than to open up and risk those walls coming crashing down.
So that's the setup. But let's look at how this builds into phase 2, the crucible of experience. You see, you can build the most impressive, impenetrable emotional fortress in the world, but life, especially with Saturn's influence, inevitably brings the weather. The universe has this exhausting sense of irony, and it absolutely won't let you hide behind those walls forever. So this testing period shows up as forced lessons. Life repeatedly throws situations at you, whether it's through loss, abrupt endings, or just massive shifting circumstances. It shoves you out of your comfort zone and demands that you accept impermanence over and over again. It forces the issue. But wait, here is the fascinating silver lining of this placement. When the crisis actually hits, you don't fall apart. You show this incredible responsibility and composure. While everyone else is completely panicking, the Saturn in the 8th house person stays remarkably grounded under high pressure. You are literally built for the heavy lifting. You just have to figure out how to put the weight down afterward. So the crucial point here is that letting go isn't just a switch you flip overnight. It's a very slow, emotional detachment process unfolding in 3 distinct steps. Step 1 is exactly where we started, that initial fear and intense resistance to change. Step 2 is that crucible we just talked about, navigating those repeated life experiences and forced endings. And then step 3, the breakthrough, the gradual acceptance of impermanence. The mind doesn't learn detachment easily, and honestly, almost never voluntarily. It learns it purely through the undeniable evidence of repeated experience. Basically, you let go because life shows you time and time again that you're going to survive the letting go.
Which brings us to the absolute best part of this explainer. Phase 3, earning true emotional freedom.
This is where all that heavy lifting, all that grueling internal processing, and those tough lessons finally pay off. The walls of your fortress are dismantled, and they're replaced by the ultimate prize, this incredibly deep resilience and unshakable inner stability after hardship. You suddenly realize, hey, I don't need the external walls anymore, because your internal foundation is completely rock solid. And with maturity, you actually achieve a gradual mastery of detachment. You learn how to engage with life, how to love, how to truly connect, without desperately trying to control the outcome. It's a profound endurance, and it really only comes from having survived the crucible.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive evolution of this placement. Think about it. We have our starting point, gripping so tightly, building walls, operating entirely from fear-based control, and then contrast that with the destination, the gradual mastery of detachment. It's a total paradox. The journey kicks off with an absolute terror of losing control, and it finishes with this deeply empowering realization that true strength is actually found when you voluntarily hand over that control.
I want you to really let this sink in. Letting go is not loss, but emotional liberation. This is the core wisdom embedded in all the source material for Saturn in the 8th house. When we're young or, when we're just operating purely out of fear, we tend to equate letting go with losing a piece of ourselves. But with maturity and real-world experience, the realization finally dawns that letting go is actually the key to your own freedom. You are finally releasing the incredibly heavy burden of trying to hold the universe still. So, to sum up this entire journey we've mapped out today, experience slowly transforms fear into wisdom. Those painful tendencies we looked at earlier, the isolation, the delayed expression, the hypercaution, actually, scratch that. They aren't character flaws at all. They're highly deliberate mechanisms designed by your psyche to keep you safe while you build up that necessary endurance. Saturn in the 8th house teaches us that the fear of loss creates immense emotional weight. But by enduring the friction of life, that raw fear is slowly, methodically alchemized into unshakable wisdom.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply important thought for you to carry with you today. Ask yourself, are you protecting your heart, or are you restricting its freedom? It's such a fine line, isn't it? Our walls definitely keep the pain out, but eventually they also keep the joy, the spontaneity, and the vital flow of life out as well. I really hope this explainer has given you the clarity to kind of examine your own walls, and maybe the courage to slowly start letting a little bit of light in. Thank you so much for exploring this profound topic with me today. Keep learning, keep reflecting, and I'll see you in the next one.